Now to the double murder in Wilson County. We're learning the suspect is charged with killing his own brother and his mother. Police identifying the victims as 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son, Daryn Cox. Jenkins' 25-year-old son, Darion Jenkins, is now charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The victims were found inside a home yesterday evening on Snowden Drive.
According to court documents, Jenkins was released from prison on March 25th on separate charges, just 1 week before the incident.
Their cousin, who also lives next door, Wanilla Carnegie, told me she dreaded this day would come.
I'm hurt because I knew he was going to do something. You can just see he was so fidgetive. He was so anxious. He could not stay still. He had that sneakiness about him. You know what I mean? Like a crazy person trying to get ready to do something, like premeditation.
My baby is home. Lord, I thank you. Dana Jenkins, a mother full of hope and joy, posted these 8 words on Facebook on March 25th, 2025. Her son had just been released from prison, and Dana couldn't contain her joy. To Dana Jenkins, those words weren't just a Facebook post. They were a sigh of relief, a prayer answered. She had worried through every night her son Darion sat behind bars, worried if he was safe, if he was eating, if she would ever get the chance to hold him again. And on that day, she finally did. She held him in her arms. She celebrated the best way a mother could, dancing, her joy spilling out for the world to see. To Dana, having her son back home meant her family was whole again. It meant hope. It meant a second chance. But no one, not Dana, not her family, not her friends, could have imagined that only 6 days later, that same home of celebration in the quiet street of Snowden Drive in Wilson, North Carolina, would become the scene of an unthinkable crime. 2 body bags were carried out of that house, one for Dana and the other for her 15-year-old son Daryn, both brutally murdered by Darion, the very same son she had just welcomed home with love. In just 6 days, a mother's greatest joy became her greatest betrayal. Her love turned into a weapon fashioned against her. The very words she typed in happiness now echo like a haunting reminder how fragile life and trust can be. This wasn't a burglary gone wrong. This wasn't some faceless violence from the outside. This was a celebration that curdled into something unspeakable. A mother who had prayed, cried, and waited for her son's freedom finally got a hold of him again. But in less than a week, that same son took everything from her. What kind of darkness twists a son against a woman who loved him most? What will make a child take down the one who carried him in her womb and nurtured him to adulthood? How do you go from a homecoming filled with laughter to 2 body bags carried out the same door, one for a mother and one for a child, while a whole community struggles to make sense of it? This is a painful cost of a mother's love that saw no danger, a love that believes that forgiveness could fix the unfixable, and of trusting that love alone could save someone who didn't want to be saved. And it will make you question, how far should unconditional love go when the warning signs are there? Welcome to Wrenching Crimes. If you are new here, we share real-life crime stories that deserve to be heard, stories that give voice to victims who can no longer speak for themselves. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now, let's step into the heartbreaking case of Dana Jenkins. Born and raised in Wilson, North Carolina, Dana was the kind of woman whose smile could light up a room.
She was a very sweet person. Always smiled. I can see her smile right now. She always smiled.
People say that a lot, but with her it was true. She had this warmth about her, the kind that made you feel seen and care for even if you only met her once. She was the kind of woman people remember for small, good things, checking on neighbors, bringing meals, and showing deep care and concern to others. She was very jovial, outgoing, and there were no dull moments with her. She was very active in church. She believes in God, forgiveness, and giving people second chances to right their wrongs. She was a mother before anything else. Dana had two boys, Darion and Daryn. Her kids were her world, her anchor, her motivation, and she poured her whole being into loving them, giving them the best she could afford, and even working full-time just to provide their basic needs. Even when life didn't make it easy, she kept pushing. Just like most mothers, Dana carried both the pride and the worry that comes with raising sons. Her younger son, Daryn, was only 15, a sweet, bright kid with so much life ahead of him. He was the boy of his mother, a kind of child who was obedient, loving, and just abides by good principles. And then there was 25-year-old Darion, her older son. Darion had his struggles, the kind that weigh heavily on a mother's heart and give her sleepless nights. When he deviated from the right path and involved himself in several crimes and had made prison his second home, Dana stood firm. While many might have turned their backs, Dana never did. She forgave him for causing her heartbreak. She prayed for him. She hoped for him. She wanted so badly for him to find his way back, to become the man she knew he could be. She just believed in giving people second chances, and giving up on Darion was out of it. The only consolation Dana had was Daryn, her younger son. He was the kind of kid adults quietly brag about. Gentle, helpful, steady. He showed up at church not just to sit. He served. He helped on the media team, played music when needed, and talked about faith like it mattered in real life. Folks at MT Moriah Community Church, where he worships, said he wanted to be a pastor someday, which honestly fits. He had that calm, caring presence that makes people feel safe. He went to Beddingfield High School, did well, and never tried to be the loudest person in the room. He didn't have to be. He was a diligent student who excelled academically, bagged the honor roll, and carried himself with this level of confidence and grace that made you believe he would go far in life. While Darion's lifestyle caused Dana too much pain and disgrace, Daryn stood in the gap and was a source of consolation and happiness to his mother. He was just a good kid who loved his mom, loved his church, and, through no fault of his own, was caught in a storm he didn't create and couldn't escape. Now, let's rewind a bit, not to slander, but to understand. Back when Darion, who is Dana's older son, was just 19 years old, he was already getting into serious trouble. Not little mistakes, serious crimes. And it wasn't just that he had this pattern of breaking into cars over and over like he couldn't stop himself. And the crazy part, these cars were parked in the church's parking lot. At 21, he broke into a neighbor's house and stole 3 guns, which is a felony. It was reckless and dangerous, and you could already see the signs of someone headed for destruction. Darion was later arrested for larceny of firearms and multiple counts of breaking into cars. Even when he landed in prison, instead of learning from it or trying to change, he picked up more trouble. He was charged with malicious conduct as a prisoner, basically acting out violently and causing problems even behind bars. That tells you a lot. If someone can't even stay in line when they're locked up, what hope is there when they're free? He stayed locked up for more than 3 years. Then, on March 25th, 2025, Darion finally walked out of the prison doors. By then, he was 25 years old, still young, with his whole life ahead of him if he chose to turn things around. And waiting for him with open arms at the prison gates was his mother, Dana. She was over the moon. She danced and celebrated hard. Dana truly believed prison had humbled her son. She thought bringing him home was the start of a second chance. She believed, maybe against all odds, that this time her son would do better. She prayed. She hoped. She thanked God for bringing him back home, and even celebrated his homecoming at home and on Facebook. Congratulations trooped in from families, friends, and even strangers. But the reality? The system released him Still angry, still unstable, and still dangerous. While Dana, Daryn, family and friends celebrated with joy and happiness, Darion seemed lost and cared less about what was happening around him. His composure screams danger. His stare was very terrifying, and he screamed, "Everybody run for your life." Dana's cousin, Cornegay, said that Darion looks like a man out of a war zone or someone still inside one. In the days that followed, life tried to snap back into place. The porch lights come on at dusk, neighbors and their routines. There was an uneasy energy in the house. The welcome home joy had quietly shifted into tension. The atmosphere turned tense and uncertain. Neighbors who knew Dana noticed something else. Darion didn't seem right. He was acting different, restless, pacing the house, staring out the window like he was waiting for something, standing in the hallway for long stretches like he was someplace else, not saying anything, just standing there looking lost, like he wasn't even in the same world as the rest of us. He was so fidgety, anxious, and could not stay still. He had that sneakiness about him, like a crazy person trying to get ready to do something nasty, like someone cooking up something terrible and carefully mapping how to execute the evil. He wasn't talking to anyone either. He's just by himself and only gives a yes, no, it's okay answer to any question asked. Everything about him just feels off.
Carnegie says that in the days leading up to the murders, she felt something was off with Darion.
You could see it, the look. It told you everything. But I had no idea that you was getting ready to do what you did.
Despite Darion's scary attitude, Dana was trying her best to make sure he felt loved. His haunting behavior doesn't matter to her because she believes that he will eventually change into a better person. So as a mother, she believes that she was meant to understand and forbear, even if other people don't. That's what mothers are meant to do, right? Darion even asked Dana for $200, saying he needed it to get some things. Dana, without hesitation, gave him. But police later found out he used that money to buy bleach, duct tape, and a hunting knife, which he later used to terminate his brother's and mother's lives. Imagine that. You know what really gets me about this whole thing? It's not just what Darion did. It's how the people around him saw the red flags and stayed quiet. Neighbors saw it. The family saw it. Even her cousin Cornegay, who lives next door, saw it too. Yet, nobody said a word to Dana, or even to Daryn, her younger son. You know, Daryn would have told his mom in a way that made her listen. At the very least, they could have taken precautions. But instead, everyone thought, "Oh, I don't want to ruin Dana's happiness. She's so excited to have her son back. Maybe he really is turning his life around." They didn't want to be the one to burst her bubble. And I get it. Nobody wants to be the bad guy in a moment that feels hopeful. But honestly, sometimes it's better to be the one who speaks up and makes someone mad than to stay silent and watch something worse happen. And Dana, bless her heart, she was blinded by love and faith. She wanted so badly to believe in her son. She poured everything into welcoming him home, her prayers, her trust, her unconditional love. But love alone doesn't always change a person. Faith without action, without setting boundaries or taking precautions, it's not enough. In the end, that blind hope cost Dana and Daryn their lives. It's so heartbreaking because maybe, just maybe, if someone had spoken up, or if Dana had seen the danger for what it was, things could have turned out differently. On March 31st, 2025, around 5:30 p.m., Wilson police got a call from Dana's home at 1700 block of Snowden Drive. The voice on the line was unclear. The details of the call were not fully known, and the dispatchers could barely hear or understand what the caller was saying. But something does not seem right. The officers described it as an unknown type of emergency. Officers were quickly dispatched to the location. When the officers entered the house, they saw 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son, Daryn Cox, lying unresponsive and lifeless inside their home. They had been stabbed multiple times. The surprising thing is that there was no evidence of forced entry, no broken windows or doors, just that the atmosphere was quiet and heavy. Even neighbors didn't notice any physical attack from outside or hear any noises that aroused a murder suspicion that day. The evening was calm, just like every other day. Cornegay speaks about the exact moment she knew something was wrong.
He's looking like he just got out of the mental ward, or he's getting ready to do something, or he have done something, because the look on his face told me that he done something, because his hand was cut all up, and he
Daron's hand.
Yeah, he had the bandage on his hand.
The street that was once filled with celebration for the last 6 days is now filled with teary neighbors, friends and family waving their heads in pain and finding answers that they never found. The discovery made by the police inside the home turned the response into a homicide investigation, and the scene was secured for detectives. So, who would have stabbed a mother and her teenage son so brutally that even the police officers were shaken to their bone marrow by the horrific scene they saw? It was no other person than Darion, the same boy who Dana had celebrated his release from prison. He did not run. He didn't show remorse or any emotion at all. He didn't even try to resist the police's arrest. So, after Darion was arrested for killing his mom and little brother, everybody was waiting to see what would happen next. He made his first court appearance on April 1st, and honestly, it was chilling. The assistant district attorney, Holly Rabel, requested that the brutality of the crime and Darion's criminal record warrant the judge to impose the highest amount possible for Darion's bond. The judge agreed and slapped him with $2.5 million in bond, $1.5 million for the murder of Dana, and $1 million for the murder of Daryn. But here's the thing. Even with the bond technically set, he's not going anywhere. He's locked up and being held without bond in practice because there's just no way he's getting out after something like this. And ultimately, the bond would be denied altogether. It's wild to think about, though. He was just standing outside, just after terminating his mother and younger brother, looking lost with that bandage on his hand. And now he's sitting in a cell, waiting for trial on double murder charges. His first imprisonment didn't change him a bit. Rather, it made him worse. A lot of people were devastated by the news of the deaths of Dana and Daryn. Dana was a very nice person who had lots of people speaking well about her. Word spread so fast, and the first thing people felt was shock, the kind that makes you stop breathing for a while. This was not just a loss to Dana's family. It was a loss to the whole community. People have so many questions left unanswered in their hearts. How can a son kill his mother who loved him so much and stood by him even when everyone else turned their backs on him? How could a mother who just celebrated her son's return from prison be found dead with her younger son? Is forgiveness truly worth it? Is blood truly thicker than water in this age and time? Who would have thought that a son could turn against his own mother? The murder of Dana and Daryn surprised many people and broke the hearts of the entire community. The members of the local church where Dana and Daryn attended were not left out in the grief. The local church became the center of public grief. M.T. Mariah's pastor spoke for a lot of people when he said the loss was confusing and troubling, even for those of faith. The congregation poured in for emergency services and prayer. Not because they wanted to sleep in church, but because they needed to hold one another and find answers to what had happened. They were speechless. Everybody was heartbroken. Even the bishop, a man of unwavering faith, could barely find the words. For a community that knew Dana and Daryn from Sunday mornings and youth events, the church's pews became a place to sit with the hurt. Hearts hurt. The congregation cried. They remembered the goodness of Dana and Daryn, especially, who were very zealous in church.
A church community processing loss. Bishop Sherman Blandon saw Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son, Daryn, just days ago. And you couldn't anticipate that would be the last time you would see either of them.
Absolutely not.
He sits with a heavy heart.
I'm sorry, I tried to gather myself. It has been very difficult, confusing, troubling. They loved each other. They loved us. We loved them. Especially Daryn. He meant the world to all of us. Our teens here, they're grieving heavily.
At school and among younger friends, the reaction was quieter but no less raw. Teachers and classmates talked about Daryn as the kind of kid who helped behind the scenes, someone who didn't crave attention but made things better. Counselors were on hand. Students shared photos and candle emojis online, and the empty desk in his classroom felt like a physical wound the school had to try to treat gently. Social media quickly filled with condolences, memories, and a steady stream of disbelief. Posts remembered Dana's laugh, Daryn's helpfulness, and begged for explanations that no one yet had. People used candles, scripture, and short, aching notes, the usual digital rituals when a small town grieves in public. The funeral, held in mid-April, drew family, friends, church members, and neighbors, people who needed to stand together and say goodbye. The whole community was just stunned. People were sad, yeah, but there was this twist of regret and anger, that feeling like maybe it could have been prevented. Everyone was asking themselves, what drove Darion to do this? Was it some explosion of rage? Or had something been building up under the surface for a long time? And how could a son, someone just welcomed back home after being gone, turn on his family so violently? We might never know the full answers, but looking back, the signs were there. The pacing, the blank stares, the quiet tension, little flashes of warning that went unnoticed or ignored. It's haunting, honestly. Makes you think about how fragile hope can be, how close the line is between believing things will be okay and facing a nightmare you never imagined. Just 12 days after the tragedy, Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son Daryn Cox were laid to rest on April 12th. The funeral, which took place at Ellen Forbes OFWB Tabernacle, was packed. Family, friends, neighbors, even strangers drawn by the story. As Pastor Damon Royal's eulogy celebrated the love and light they shared and not the horror they had passed through, tears welled up in the eyes of many whose lives they had touched directly or indirectly. The next day, they were buried side by side at Rest Haven Cemetery. Seeing everyone there, flowers on the fresh earth, it hit hard. This wasn't just a family grieving. The whole community felt the loss. Two rare gems gone, just like that, on April 25th, when Darion appeared in court for the first time. Darion just stood there, unmoved, uncaring, and expressionless. He was just staring into space. Darion was charged with 2 counts of murder. So, listen, the prosecutors were really clear about this. They weren't by any "he lost it for a moment" excuse. This wasn't some random, impulsive act. They were saying it was planned, thought through, completely intentional and cold-blooded. When he was in prison previously, he was denied parole twice because of constant trouble and violent behavior. While in prison, he is always on the bad side and causing more trouble for himself. He was released as a broken and dangerous man, and he committed the wrenching murder that made an officer say that such scenes are only seen in war zones and not in a mother's room. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered Dana's life insurance policy, a modest plan through her job, with Darion listed as the beneficiary. Think about that for a second. Since Darion knew that he was the insurance beneficiary, he might just overlook the sacrifices of his mother and start seeing his mother as a way to cash out. On the surface, that might look like a motive, but here's the reality. If you kill the policyholder, you don't collect. Insurance companies don't pay murderers, no matter what the paperwork says. And that's what made the scene so puzzling. If money were truly the reason, wouldn't Darion have at least tried to cover his tracks? A stage break-in, forced entry, ransack rooms, anything to shift suspicion. But investigators found none of that. The house was untouched, which left one haunting question. If it wasn't about the money, what was it really about? Some believe it was resentment. His younger brother was everything he wasn't, bright, loved, and respected. Every time Darion looked at him, it was like staring at the life he lost. Others point to his mother. Dana gave him food, shelter, and even forgiveness. But instead of gratitude, maybe he felt anger. Maybe he saw her love as pity, or as a reminder of how far he had fallen. Or perhaps it was darker. After years behind bars, Darion was used to control through violence. Maybe this wasn't about money at all, but power. A way to prove he could still dominate, even in his own home. Prosecutors later described it as something cold, calculated, not a crime of passion, but a decision. One that erased a family and left an entire town asking the same haunting question. If it wasn't for gain, what exactly did he kill for? No matter the reason, here's the painful truth. Dana's forgiveness made it hard for anyone to step in. When you love someone that fiercely, you don't want to be the person who breaks their hope. Family members admitted they noticed odd behavior, but stayed quiet because they didn't want to take that joy away from her. That silence, born of love, left Daryn caught in the middle. He was 15, a kid in church and school with plans and people who cared for him. He didn't deserve to be dragged into adult failures and dangers unfolding around him. I don't want to blame Dana. She was trying to be a mother the only way she knew how. But this whole thing shows how forgiveness without guardrails and hope without help can leave the most vulnerable exposed. Little Daryn was, tragically, the innocent who paid the highest price while the rest of the family wrestled with love, fear, and what they simply couldn't stop. As we wrap up the story and the story moves to trial, I want you all to think about Dana Jenkins, a mother whose heart was pure, whose faith in love and forgiveness never wavered. Dana believed in the power of love. She thought her faith, her forgiveness, and her mother's heart could heal her son. She welcomed him home with open arms, never imagining the danger waiting behind that door. But love without accountability, without safeguards, can become a weakness. And in Dana's case, that love became her undoing. And Daryn, her youngest, the light of her life, was caught in the middle, paying the ultimate price for a bond that was supposed to protect him. This case reminds us how fragile the line between hope and danger can be. Sometimes love is enough. Sometimes believing someone can change when they aren't ready or willing can lead to unimaginable heartbreak. And while Dana's story is devastating, it's also a warning. Pay attention to the signs, trust your instincts, and protect the ones you love. Her life, her son's life, and the terror of that day will forever haunt Wilson. Darion may have pulled the trigger, but the truth is, the system failed Dana and Daryn long before that night. The red flags were there. The warnings were loud. Yet silence and neglect let this tragedy unfold. And now, 2 innocent lives are gone because no one stepped in when it mattered most. Sometimes love isn't enough, and this tragedy painfully reminds us why we must pay attention to the warning signs around us. It's a stark, heartbreaking lesson that even the strongest love can't always save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Dana believed in redemption, but sometimes love isn't enough. Dana's love couldn't save her own home, and Daryn's life was stolen before it even began. It makes you wonder, how far would you go to protect someone who doesn't want to be saved? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and then turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode.